welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And yesterday I was thinking, you know what we need here? We need a jingle. So I'm going to make a jingle and we're going to see what happens. I'm an overachiever, so just keep that in mind. We'll see how long it takes for me to do it, but I think a jingle is necessary. We need to sound more professional when we start this so that people listen longer and don't like listen to the first part where I'm just saying in my morning voice with my morning hair, which I have today, good morning. You know what I mean? Like it's just not professional sounding. So I think I need to kick it up a notch. And so just wait for that. It's going to be exciting. A jingle. We can all sing along at the beginning of each episode. So today I wanted to talk about judging, and it 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 was not the topic of my morning meeting. It's Sunday, so I only had one morning meeting. On Sundays, my 8 o'clock meeting doesn't happen. So what I heard all morning was judging. The topic was actually, it was a reading from, I think, Spiritual Awakenings, and it was, maybe it was a different book. Anyway, it was a story about a guy who, like, had this um unusual experience where he just like envisioned this evil figure leaving his house and then he never had a thought about drinking again. And I had slept in 3 minutes because my dogs don't let me do more than that. And so when I logged into the meeting, I was hearing this story, and my first thought was, what the are we reading, you know? Um, and it took me a minute to stop that judgment about what we were reading and actually listen for a lesson in what I was hearing. And the lesson was pretty clear to me after the story was over. And that was one, I may not have had some vision of an evil figure leaving my life when I finally stopped having the desire to drink, but I did have a clear moment in my early sobriety where my connection with my understanding of my higher power like became a solid connection, became something that I could depend on. It became faith. And I remember the moment. I talk about it all the time. It was when I was in San Francisco walking around the block over and over again, trying not to drink. And that is really what the story was talking about. It was talking about that shift, that spiritual, mental shift that gives us this gift of not having the compulsion to drink. Um, and I can say I had the same shift when I finally admitted that my life was unmanageable after my stroke. I fought it for 2 years, and then I kept working. I kept getting worse. My symptoms kept getting worse. And when I finally gave in, I didn't give up, I gave in. And I admitted that I something has to change or nothing's going to change. That I had a sudden shift as well. And that shift was felt very uncomfortable. That shift was more like um handing my life over. That's what that felt like. And it felt like a lack of control. While I experienced something similar when I went into detox for the second time, it was, it seems like that shift happened several times in sobriety where I handed it over to something greater than myself. And I didn't know what I was handing anything over. I didn't know what I was handing over and who I was handing it over to, but I knew something had to change. And the same thing happened when I was sitting out on my front porch 2 years after my stroke, realizing that something's got to change or nothing's going to change. And I completely lost my train of thought. That's what happens. Oh boy. I hate when this happens. I hope you guys don't get too frustrated and click stop playing. I think you do. Maybe. Wow, it's completely gone. Uh, the show, that there was a shift that happened. And when I realized that that's what the story was telling me, my message this morning was stop judging. Stop judging people. Stop really people for what they're saying, what their experience is, and look for what the lesson, how can I apply it in my life? It doesn't matter how unreal, how disbelieving I am in the story that somebody's telling. That part doesn't matter. What matters is I'm hearing the story. What can I take from this story and apply to my life? And what do I just leave um, and let go of? Anything beyond that, as far as if somebody's telling the truth or something like that, is none of my business. Even if it's not a true story, there's always something that I can get from it. And so that's my lesson this morning is to pay attention to when I'm listening to somebody and whether the voice inside my head is louder than than their voice that's telling me the story. Because if it is, I'm not hearing what they're saying. I'm not truly listening and I'm not finding connection. And that is so important. That's what community is about. That's what being a human being among human beings is about. Um, and then coincidentally, what I heard this morning was someone talking about how they were feeling like the other person in that story, the person that was saying something that other people didn't believe and felt like she was being judged even when she was being honest. And that was an interesting perspective on the whole experience I was having this morning was not only did I come to that realization that I need to listen to what the message is in what somebody is saying, but it's important for me to consider what that other person is gaining from sharing that message, right? And there's something to be gained on both sides. So it's important to not just shut your mouth, but shut up that voice in our heads that say, this person is full of shit, and what can I gain from this? Even if it's the smallest thing, I fully believe that there's something to be gained from every conversation, every type of connection that we have, whether it's elicits anger or whatever emotion that it's eliciting while we're listening, the importance is in the emotion. It's not in the self-talk. It's not, I feel like sometimes my self-talk is trying to numb emotion. It's trying to get me to not feel emotion because emotion is uncomfortable. Um, a lot of times, most of the time, I think emotion is uncomfortable, and judgment is a way for me to shut down the emotion and not be affected by it. But the lessons aren't there. The lessons aren't in my judgments. The lessons are in listening and feeling and responding, right? And that's what I've been talking about all week. So, honestly, I didn't know what I was going to say this morning, and it's a pretty short episode, but there's a big lesson in what has happened in my mind this morning since I woke up. So I'm happy that I showed up for myself today, and I'm happy that you showed up for you as well. Today is another rest day, and yeah, so that'll be nice for me to keep trying to heal. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.